Everyone's here? Yep. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to those watching online. Today's the meeting of the Finance and Performance Committee. I'll open the meeting with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, ki matara tara ki tai, ehi aka ana atakura. We have no apologies and everybody's present, so that's great. Is there any extraordinary business that we need to place on the agenda? No. Conflicts of interest, we've got them listed in the paper, but is there anything else to bring up? No. Confirmation of the last meeting's minutes. Trust you've all had a chance to read them. Is there anybody who has any comment, or otherwise someone to please move the minutes be accepted? Move Samuel, seconded by Tracy. All those in favour? Aye. That's carried. Thank you. Chairperson's report. I'm not going to give a report this time. We've got a very full agenda and I don't have anything extremely pressing to update you on, so we'll move through to the Executive Director's report.
Thanks, Aaron, and good morning. I will take mine as read, but I will just note there have been a lot of questions raised in Diligent, which is great. The teams when presenting will cover those off. But if there have been any that have came through late yesterday or very early this morning, please go ahead and ask those questions. I think the only one thing I would say just in regards to the finance paper that Becca and Neil will talk to is this is the draft financials for June. There's not a balance sheet in there, but the balance sheet movements is largely just what's going through debtors and creditors. It is draft, it is subject to audit adjustments for gains and losses, depreciation adjustments, etc. But I'll leave the team to talk to that in more detail, and I'll stop there.
A question from Tracy.
Paragraph 4.4, page 2 of your report. It says it's a framework and a structure that makes existing and already planned investment work harder. That's in relation to customer first. Did I misread that or did I misunderstand it?
Sorry, Tracy, what question, what paper? My ED report.
Oh, God.
Okay. No worries.
No other questions for Alison? Can we have a mover that Alison's report be accepted? Lydia, and seconded by Sophie. All those in favour? That's carried. Thanks, Alison. Now, welcome the digital team to the table. Good morning, Lynn and Greg. Over to you guys.
Yeah, very good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. So digital paper this 3 months covers two things, which is the close of financial and then what we're proposing for next year. So close of financial saw us come in under budget, 1.04 against 1.34. We did accrue some stuff in the capex that we're going to be building of 127 accrual. The underspend was mostly due to finding efficiencies rather than not doing the work. And there we needed to pause and relook at some stuff, which meant we chose not to spend the money because it just wasn't the right thing to do to spend the money. So the next year budget kicks in. And that will be largely consumed by HRIS, which is currently out for RFP, and the Customer First program, which is rolling a few programs from last year in together over a 3-year period. It's fair to say that we uncovered some things that we wanted to find the root cause of rather than just trying to put some shiny stuff over the top. And we think that there are some of the fundamentals of getting stuff out to our community and our customers. So putting information back in their hands in a way that they can reuse it via apps and stuff like that. We need to get the building blocks of that correct. So that's where we're putting the effort in the next year. So year 1 of the Customer First program largely looks like sweat equity and getting the data right and getting our basics right. Year 2 looks like sweat equity and some building. And then that's where your community really starts seeing something good. So those are the two main points of the report. There was a question from Tracy that came in last night. Do you want me to address that now?
Yeah, you might as well.
So the question, so question from Tracy, is there a way to estimate total potential savings organisation-wide to the 3-year digital plan so we can head off the horses of waste of money? I know it's not easy to do, but we must have identified savings in the original business case. Could we put it up front in the purpose and background? Moving forward we can. So the business case for HRIS hasn't been written yet because we're still out to RFP. What we can see immediately working with the P&C group is there will be, we think, some really good efficiencies and savings. What that translates to, we don't know yet. So that'll be a conversation with P&C of going, if you have efficiencies here, what does that mean? Is there a reduction in the headcount, or is there shrinking the work back into their 40-hour week type thing? So we don't know the answers to those things yet. And what was your second question that you had, Tracy?
Oh, it was in paragraph 4.4, where it says it's a framework and a structure that makes existing and already planned investment work harder. And so I was thinking, why are we doing something that's making something harder? Did I misunderstand?
Yes, I think it's probably my writing that's it's probably something there. So we want to make the investment work harder. So
Thank you.
cool.
Are there any other questions?
I've got a question. When you talk about customers, is that ratepayers and or is that internally focused, like staff being the customers, or is it both?
Both is a more broad answer. So focused at the community, so whether they're ratepayers or tenants or owners who live outside of the community. So the ratepaying and anyone who's living in the area, they can get better information about. So at the minute there's lots of ways to get information. There's ways to come into council to ask questions, but then it goes off into different areas, so it can go into black holes and seem that they don't get an answer. So the more that we started digging into all of this, we're going, we don't need to replace all of these databases at the bottom. We don't need to rebuild a whole bunch of new apps, but we need to skin something up top so you've got, it looks like a one-stop shop, but behind it might be a whole bunch of rooms.
Thank you. And you talked about efficiencies before. Is that efficiencies on like particular projects that have a finite lifespan, or are they efficiencies we might hope to enjoy going forward?
So HRIS will replace a bunch of manual work that gets done with spreadsheets and people needing to do some of the heavy lifting. So I don't believe that tools ever the first part of the answer, but in this case it's a large part of the answer of making sure that we've got a single source of truth for people information, and that we have some sort of automation to take away a lot of the manual work that currently gets done. So yeah, efficiency is more so around the manual work.
Great, thank you. Got a question from Lydia.
You all know that scope creep is my favourite thing, and I know we talked about this last time as well. And I think, looking at the great work that's going on here, and love the table with the efficiencies that the team are finding. It's really helpful to get that clear picture. Some of me with the program, and this might be the way I'm thinking because of the reporting, how it has been happening, but I just wonder what the gateway for stopping or redesigning work packages are if the benefits aren't starting to materialise. And, I know we're really dependent on the HRIS space, and so...
You're right, scope creep is one of my soapboxes as well. However, in my view, pragmatic scope creep is a thing. So the work packages that Greg designed, because that Customer First program, by the way, is designed by Greg, looks at where you can stop and reassess and go, is this now the right thing to do before we barge into something else? Those checkpoints we think are important because we think that was somewhat of what's been missing before, and instead of just barging through to find the way through, stop and that replan is where we think we'll get the value.
Brilliant. Thank you.
John?
So does that mean that things that are going to add, in my view, value, like sort of better integration with billing to make sure that people know that they've got money to pay us, will be prioritised within the project?
Short answer is yes. Actually, do you want to talk?
Yes, short answer is yes. We've looked at where in the ecosystem the customer information is just not where it needs to be, like billing, for example. And so that's the sort of thing that we want to prioritise, rather than information that's relatively easy to do but isn't as important. So we've been looking at, and we will be, when we do the customer journey work that's detailed on the table there, we'll be actually asking the customers, what's the important stuff that you would like us to provide for you, so that we get a bit of a customer view as to what it is they need out of a digital solution.
So is it probably a little bit tautological, but I would have thought that if I'm a customer, that the important thing is that people who owe the council money are identified and there's an effective measure to send out the invoice and make sure it's paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So that for us, that's a little bit of table stakes, right? That's that we need to get the basics right, and then build from there. So, yeah.
I think too, we are, along the way, we'll uncover some of those business problems. So around all of council, finance is an easy one to pick on, but it's further than that. So understanding what the business problem is in terms of the conversation that goes on with our community, making sure we've got billing right, making sure they get the right answers back at the right time. That's part of what led to this, is we found quite a few problem statements within business that they're trying to solve, that we think this program will pull in a lot of that. And you're right, there are some around making sure that people pay the right bills at the right time, also not continually getting reminded to pay bills that they've already paid.
Elizabeth?
I see Magic Q features quite heavily in here. Just wondering if there's, I mean, we've heard a few conversations about Magic Q over the years. If Magic Q is still considered fit for purpose, given that it seems to be the baseline for where we're sitting at for quite a few areas, and whether that's, how are we looking at the future going forward with Magic Q?
Lynn, I'm happy to start that conversation first. So in the last few weeks, we've just got a report back from Magic around, are we using the system the way it was intended? So we've done a lot of work in the past, and it was sort of covered under the Finance Hygiene Project around GL codes, etc. So that report will then point us to where our problem statements are, is how Lynn described it. So we need to go back and actually make sure, are we using the system, A, as it was intended? Are people trained correctly to use the system? And to John's point around invoices going out, that's part of the BAU improvements that will be made within the finance team, coupled with support from the digital team. To your final point, is Magic fit for purpose? I think we need to go through that exercise, firstly, to make sure that we are using it as it's intended. If, on the back of that, which will take us probably about 6-7 months to go through, if it's not fit for purpose, then we'll bring this back.
If there's no further questions, can I have a mover that the digital report be accepted? Sarah, seconded Tracy. All those in favour? It's carried. Thanks, team. Moving on to the financials. Becca and Neil.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me, so I'll bring this a bit closer. Apparently my voice is really husky today, so I'll do my best. All right, I'm here to talk about the draft financial results for the year ending 30 June 26. As Alison's already mentioned, these are draft and they do not yet include the year-end adjustments, and balances remain subject to audit review and finalisation. Council's draft year-end result has a surplus of 70.3 million in actuals compared to a budgeted surplus of 42.6 million, which represents a favourable variance of 27.7 million. The result reflects continued growth across the region, strong activity levels in regulatory services, higher than forecast investment revenue, and continued focus on cost management and efficiency initiatives. In the revenue performance, the total revenue was 237.1 million, which was 25.1 million above budget. The key contributors included fees and charges, which was 10.2 million above budget, primarily driven by the higher building consent volumes and increased construction values across the region. Building and planning activity remained strong throughout the year, with application volumes approximately 20% higher than the prior year. Investment revenue was 7.9 million above budget, reflecting higher interest earnings than anticipated. Subsidies and grants were 8 million below budget, largely due to lower than anticipated NZTA funding associated with the National Land Transport Fund capital allocation process. And other gains were 1.8 million below budget due to the timing differences that are expected to be addressed through the year-end adjustments that Neil will talk to. Expenditure performance. The total expenditure was 166.8 million, which was 2.5 million below budget. And the primary drivers were personnel costs at 2.5 million below budget as a result of vacancies across a number of service areas. This favourable variance was partially offset by increased use of contractors and consultants within the consenting function to maintain service levels and meet demand. Other operating expenditure and operational project costs were collectively 3.6 million below budget, reflecting targeted cost-saving initiatives, prudent expenditure management, and the use of internal resources where applicable. The favourable variance of 27.7 million is primarily attributable to the increased operating revenue, particularly from regulatory activity and investment income, combined with expenditure remaining below budget. While the result is strong, and the result remains subject to year-end adjustments and audit review, which may impact the final reported position. Looking ahead into next year, improving forecast accuracy and strengthening financial performance monitoring will remain a key focus, and Council will continue to assess opportunities to improve efficiency and realise sustainable savings. Do you have any questions?
Lydia.
I've got a couple of questions, and thank you for covering off the subsidies and grant variance in that space. I thought I was going mad looking for looking for that in there. With that, is any of that actually recoverable with NZTA? Because I know that we'd secured additional funding from them for some projects, but we're just carrying that as a loss.
I'm unsure, but as far as I know, that we put in a budget of 12 million, and obviously we did get some funding come through, but this was the risk that we've been carrying all year. I'm not sure whether Tim wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. It is, and we are constantly working with the NZTA to try and claw back some of that funding that we didn't get as part of the long-term plan. So we have brought a couple of papers to you over the last few years that said, you know, we've managed to secure some of that funding. How would you like us to spend it? But we have to recognise it as a loss that we recognise through the year. But we do a pretty good job, and the team are continuing to work with them to try and secure some of that funding that we didn't get.
Great. They're in tomorrow, so maybe I'll remind them.
Yeah, good idea.
The other one I just had was other gains, and so we're showing a loss of 1.8, and I couldn't see what that was for in it, but apologies if I have missed it.
That's all good. So you haven't missed anything because this is your actual balance in there. The other gains are part of the year-end work that we do on disposing of assets, revaluations of assets and investments, etc. So that's, and I'll talk more to that in my part, but yes, those are year-end adjustments that are still finalised. We're reviewing reports from external valuers, etc., and that'll be captured as part of the draft financials that will go to Audit New Zealand for auditing, and that'll come back to Council for adoption.
Cool, thank you. And then last one is just looking at the surplus that we have there, and I know that we have some work to do. My question is that there's going to be some minor adjustments with auditing, but is there any of that is needed for carryover with our capital program? And, you know, like in my mind, I'm just trying to look at what is the real figure that we're going to be left with. And then my other question is, do we bring this back at the next finance and performance around our options on the surplus and what we would like to do with it, if that's appropriate?
Difficult one. Considering, so what we're looking at here is a management reporting surplus. So currently included in there is development contributions, which is capital revenue. Something that's still to be included, like your vested assets revenue, which is also capital in nature. So to get to your operating surplus, you have to deduct those. Then you also have additional accounting entries such as your depreciation, which is still to come in. Last year it was $50 million. But this year that would look different because we don't have the water and sewage assets for 6 months of the year. So that figure will change. So only once we have those final figures can we see the true surplus, and then you'll also have your operating surplus versus your accounting surplus. And then we will bring it back in terms of what happens with that surplus once we know what it is. Traditionally, councillors can either use it to decrease our debt, which is effectively happening at the moment because we borrow at an organisational cash requirement level, or you can use some of it to reduce future rates increases.
Thank you.
Tracy.
Lydia and Neil, you've probably taken care of my question. I was just mindful that I know when this came out last year, there were people who thought this was the amount of money floating around in the bank to spend. So, Lydia, I think you've confirmed that. For anybody listening or who might read later, that's not sitting in the bank to be spent or to pay down debt. That's $70,000. Thank you.
Million.
Samuel.
Thank you. Increase in finance costs above what was budgeted when our borrowings are technically lower than what we originally estimated in LTP. Could you talk to that, please?
Sure.
Preferably Neil to save Becca's voice.
Yes, so as we reported through Audit and Risk Committee and Finance Performance over the last year, a portion of that is due to we had to hold higher cash for drawdown facilities for Selwyn Water.
Yeah.
We had to hold higher cash for liquidity purposes before we got the additional $20 million standby facility from the LGFA. That got passed and actioned in April, so we were able to repay more debt as debt matured to reduce our cash. But also over the last year, the interest rates on there was a quarter or two where we actually received more interest on our current bank account than we paid on our fixed debt. So there was a strategy behind holding more cash as well and earning more interest than what we paid on our long-term borrowings. So we have to look at the investment revenue line item alongside the finance costs. So in the investment revenue, that's $8 million over budget. I think from memory, $3.3 million of that is interest revenue, higher than budget. So if you look at the net position of that, you've actually got a $1.7 million net interest favourable variance, which is the consequence of prudent cash flow management.
Good work.
It's good to have an opportunity to toot one's trumpet. And I think I know the answer to this, but the increase in legal and professional services and consultants, I gather, is that due to Selwyn Water Limited's establishment fees or no?
No, we've got an increase in the consultancy fees will be down to obviously the increase in the consenting space. So we're having to bring more people in to try and deal with that demand.
Yeah. Okay.
So it does offset. Again, you have to look at it in conjunction with the fees and charges and obviously all of that, your staff wages and stuff like that.
But it's being cost recovered.
Yeah, we'll have greater clarity around what is consultant and contractor going forward, but yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
John.
Following on from Councillor Bushell's question, it just seems to me that the 2.6 million under budget is offset by the 2.7 million overspend on consultants, but just not getting into operational, but from a governance perspective, to see that there are 71 roles actively being recruited seems an awful large amount. And I suppose the question would be that when we're short on staff, or we're taking longer to recruit than we would like to take, and we have to engage a consultant, I understand that in the resource consent and building area that it's cost recovery, but it seems to me that's a fiscally neutral, that if we're engaging a consultant and we're actually recovering that from the client, how's that come through in the report?
I'll agree, it's quite misleading. It's not all consultancy, which is what I was saying, is that we do have consultants and contractors and vacancy cover that gets lumped into the same space. So yes, some of it will in the consenting space will be cost recoverable, but we do have consultants that we use for projects as well. So I do appreciate that it's difficult to see that. So further clarity, if that's what you're requiring, I can certainly be able to provide that going forward to give you that assurance.
I would find it helpful to just have greater transparency on the way that it's presented. Thank you.
That's fine, yep.
Elizabeth.
A little bit on the back of what John said around, so we've got consulting, legal and professional services. I think for something that I've been talking about for the last number of years is the external spent on legal, and whether we could have that as a separate itemised thing so we get the breakdown and we understand what that's over, where that cost is. Okay. And I guess probably also rates, penalties, having an understanding who's been targeted for rate penalties, and if we're finding it's particular aspects of our community, I think it would be really good to be all over that.
Okay, we can look into that for you.
You're back.
Sam.
Sorry to come back. Just going on to page 36. Can we pay off 2027 early? And what would it cost to break before it matures?
Yeah, so
'Cause I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
So there's a total between the fixed and floating of $45 million. So as agreed with Selwyn Water Limited in the transfer agreement, their next tranche of debt repayment is phased with our next tranche of debt. So interest is being earned on the borrowing still outstanding with SWL for council, and their repayment will be paired with our debt maturity. I can't tell you off the top of my head what it would cost to break, considering this is April 2027. I think it would be a significant amount, noting that we're quite a few months out from it.
Sweet. Also, before you flick that light off, so just to clarify, our interest recovery from Selwyn Water Limited is cost neutral?
Correct. We are charging them our average cost of borrowings.
Yeah, cool. Just wanted to make sure that we're not making a dividend by another name. Yeah, thank you.
Reece.
Yeah, that interest when Selwyn Water, thank you, Sam. The DCs, so the difference between the revenue versus the expenditure, that money, can you just clarify for everybody what happens with that money and where it sits?
Correct. So Peter will report on the life to date and then also the current year balances of development contributions. But as noted, we development contributions received goes into our bank account, and we repay our debt as it matures and as we have cash available. So technically the balance of our development contributions, which is I think sitting in excess of $60 million that we've received and not yet spent on capital growth projects, that has essentially been used to repay debt. So as a result, that is technically a liability, as we do report on our balance sheet section, because we've received the money, but we haven't spent it on a capital project yet.
So it's on our debt. It's not invested in the time before spending. It's invested in debt, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
So we account for the receipts, and then as those projects get completed and capital expenditure flows out of the business, those receipts allocated to those projects are utilised against the cost of that project.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That clarifies it. I was also looking at the investment revenue and the excess that was in there, and I was trying to work out where that had come from, but it doesn't matter where it came from. It's a good result. Thank you.
Question for me, page 35. It says water monitoring was 515,000 under budget. Partly that was resulting from changing compliance requirements. You may or may not know this, but is that a reduced cost that Selwyn Water are likely to benefit from going forward, or is it just a one-off thing that we've saved money on? 5.7c.
I'll have to come back to you on that one. Sorry, Aaron.
No worries. I thought that could be the case. No more questions? Can I have someone move that the finance report be accepted? Or actually, no, we're going to Neil's section first, aren't we? We'll do that.
I feel like we've actually covered most of it. No, it's just to reiterate and maybe expand on what Alison's already said and enough covered. And one of the questions is the fact that the balance sheet that as of 30 June wouldn't have changed materially since the previous version we shared in April. Significant changes are to come with depreciation mentioned in the tens of millions. The valuation of our investments in Cord, Orion, our investment properties, our assets. So significant adjustments are still coming through. In terms of the numbers that are already fixed as of 30th of June, we did report on the cash and the borrowings. I think we've already covered in terms of the change in our cash flow and how it's come down closer to budget. But it is still a bit higher than probably we've budgeted, and also certainly than we forecasted. We just had really strong receipts in the month of June in terms of development contributions, payments, and other payments received. So it was significantly higher than we planned. And we will, as committed to the audit and risk, we're going to continue to push ourselves in terms of our forecasting and actually utilising our cash to repay borrowings as much as we responsibly can. In terms of our borrowings, as mentioned, we utilised the standby facility with our liquidity ratio requirements and debt repaid from SWL to repay a significant portion of our debt, and that's come down to $225 million. As reported last week in a briefing, that is $164.5 million lower than the LTP forecast, but that is obviously a bit different because it still had water and wastewater in that LTP forecast, and it didn't have the debt repayment from Selwyn Water in there. But happy to take any further questions on the balance sheet.
Alison has got a comment.
No, I was just going to close that out and just note that Audit New Zealand, or audit officers are now called, they are on site on 21st of September to do the final audit. They've already completed their interim audit. Nothing major came out of that. We've tried to cover as many things as we could in the interim audit, given that the year-end audit is quite tight. 21st to try and get the report through and adopted by Council by October 31st.
Denise.
Oh, there was it was actually your question, Aaron, on page 41 about the PPI of 1.5% on the DCs. Is that quarterly? Not
It's
yet.
the next
Oh,
paper,
have I jumped
think.
papers? Sorry.
The next paper, so hold
I'm
that
too
thought.
excited. Okay. I will wait then. I will wait. I'm not well.
Very good. If there's no further questions, can I have someone move that the paper be accepted? Sarah, and seconded by Sophie. All those in favour? It's carried. Thanks, team, and appreciate the work you're doing at this busy time of year for you guys. So we have Peter to come to the table. And Rachel. So over to you guys, to development contributions.
Good morning. I'll just give a brief summary and then go into questions. Just as has been noted prior, these final balances are still subject to change as we work through the year-end interest calculations. Currently, our total DC balances are sitting at 66.3 million versus a budgeted 48.4 million. This is due to a mixture of increased DCs received, which tends to be because we've had a lot of large developments come online recently, which has led to us receiving a lot more revenue. On the other hand, we've also had some large projects that are DC funded that have had delays due to returning to scoping or other delays in resource consenting. These projects are the large ones, are things like District Park, Vatarau, Lincoln Reserve Extension, Kakaha Park Reserve Development. So our balances are higher due to a mixture of both increased revenue and decreased spend. Stormwater has now reached a point where it's recovered its historical cost. So anything it gains now is building up towards future spend on infrastructure increases. In relation to the question for the PPI increase, that 1.5% PPI increase was for a year. We had quite a few periods where the PPI increase has been quite low within construction. It's now started to pick up, but due to our long consultation process, we have to cut it off back in using the September 2025 figures and the 4 quarters before that. So you would expect the next time we do a PPI increase, it would be quite a bit higher. In terms of individual developer agreements, these are normally drawn up when the infrastructure pressure assumptions that are in our DC policy do not necessarily align with the items that are going in. And so it may be that the infrastructure needs are going to be heavier than expected or lighter. And so that's when we have an individual developer agreement and work out a rate that makes sense based on the impact that the infrastructure will have. These agreements generally follow a template, which normally include PPI increases annually and recovery of timing-related interest costs. Are there any questions?
Got one from John.
Yes, in relation to the developer agreements, are they generally favourable, that is, more money's coming in, or unfavourable?
Generally, it is more in relation to higher infrastructure load. So we do normally have a higher rate, similar to what the development levies will be introducing in a high cost overlay, where this area is using the infrastructure much heavier than was expected, and so we need a higher rate to allow for that. So it is, in your terms, favourable.
And just in broad figures, the sort of dollar amount overall in the last financial year?
Based only on developer agreements?
Yeah.
I would have to come back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Denise.
Yeah, I was probably just following on from what John said. If we could have some more detail on the developer agreements that are outstanding and the length of time that they run for. Like, I know some of them run for 5 or 10 years, so it would be good to know more detail of that. Thank you.
No more questions. So can we have a mover that the paper be accepted? Lydia? Seconder? Samuel? All those in favour? Aye. It's carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Capital report. Pretty slick operation here. Just for anyone online who's wondering what we're doing, we're running a wee bit ahead, so the staff member that was going to join Peter is still coming.
I'll take the chance to answer one of the questions that we received around why SWL is not included in this report. That's because they're a separate entity. We don't have access to their financials or their project information. We just receive at year end their total information when it comes to consolidation. So that's why this report, we can't report on where they are sitting in their projects.
And I think, Peter, just adding to that, Selwyn Water are presenting their financials later today as well. So any questions can be asked directly to them.
Are they both here? So we might skip to the next paper, reverse order. So we've got the Bob is going to join us, I think. So welcome, Bob and Emma. Development process timeframe.
Thank you and good morning, councillors. So this is not something we've traditionally done. So traditionally we've only reported by exception. So where things were going wrong, we'd come to council and report on that and discuss next steps. Just noting that last week we did bring building inspections and the risk that we have there to audit and risk last week and talk to that into some detail. But I'll pass over to Emma to talk about planning, and I can talk a bit about building, and hopefully Murray arrives to talk about development engineering in the meantime.
Kia ora koutou. So just in terms of the resource consents performance, for the first half of 2026, we've been sitting around 95, 96% timeframe compliance and around 14 to 16 average working days. And so, you know, in terms of where we've been in the last couple of years, I think we had 1 month where we were in the 50s for timeframe compliance and averaging 42 working days. So in terms of where we're really pleased with the numbers that are represented in this report. But in terms of where we're going, we're still driving for improvement, maybe further towards 100% timeframe compliance, which is our level of service in the LTP. And we've got lots of small initiatives underway to make sure that that remains focus.
Just as Mary walks in the door, I'll put him on the hot seat.
You guys have been a bit efficient today, but zippy. Yes, I think following on, I'm talking about two parts to the bottom of the table. One is the flood assessment certificate, where our compliance over the last 2 quarters has improved from 94% up to 96%, and the average time has dropped on processing days, which is also good, from 6.1 to 5.3. For engineering acceptance, there's been an improvement from 66% to 68% in terms of compliance timeframes, and the average days also reduced from 22.2 to 20.5. I think we're happy to take questions at this point.
John.
Yeah, can you just explain that in relation to the flood assessment certificates, how is the situation that we still have so much flooding in certain districts? Are the two related, or is there?
No, not necessarily. So the flood certificates set the finished floor level of houses. So if we're seeing new builds being inundated by flood water, then yes, that's a problem. But if it's existing areas which are being flooded, then no, this process won't be fixing that. So just to recap, this assessment is for new builds. So they come into council saying we want to build a new house. Part of that process is to set the finished floor level of that dwelling. And so this is what that process is. Yeah, so if it's a new subdivision which is flooding and the house is getting inundated, then yes, there's a problem. But if it's older stock, then no, not necessarily.
And can you just explain a little bit about the formula, so that if there is a subdivision that's going to make an application to proceed and that's sort of flood prone, how do you set the height, and how many of those have there been recently? And I suppose the question is that, are we being rigorous enough to ensure that there's a bit of a safety margin, so that when we do get a heavier than expected rainfall, that the building level above the ground, accommodates that?
Yeah, so the Building Act talks to a 50-year design standard, and the district plan, which is what the flood level certificates are set as, is actually at a 200-year plus a 300 mils freeboard. So there's plenty of safety in that.
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
I've got the opposite to what John has. He's wanting us to build more Noah's Arks, and my community want us to build smaller Noah Arks. Around the flood assessment, are we doing all of those internally, or are they provided by consultants as well?
So the flood assessments are using our flood model, and our development engineering team does that in-house, but also uses consultants to do that work as well, if depending on the workload.
So given that there's a variety of people looking over this, is there sometimes variation in the results that are given?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Does the assessment also include the on-flow effects of the water once you've raised the land up to the now flooding of the neighbouring properties, or is that a separate assessment?
Yeah, it's probably a separate process. So when we consent or to provide engineering acceptance for new developments, then we do look at that, correct, at that point.
Okay, and who does that assessment? The same assessment team that issue the certificate, or a separate body of people?
Yeah, same group of people.
Samuel.
Thank you. The regards to building consents and building inspections, what's the sort of feedback your team's getting from us early contractors? Are they happy with the timeframes given? Like, they seem reasonable to me, and to be fair, if we generally plan accordingly and book before we're even ready. Or maybe that's just me.
On the building consent processing side of things, I hear no complaints, particularly those people who are part of the professional partnership where we're turning around on average 4 days, which is a really good measure.
Awesome.
As we talked about last week, building inspections is not where we want it. So if you rang up today, you might get an inspection 13 days from now, next available. What we are finding is where we operate a wait list and we engage with those builders, they're not necessarily ready at that particular point in time. So they are pre-booking inspections where they may not be necessarily ready. But it is one of our points of interest at the moment that we are trying to surge some resource in. But there's just a real lack of qualified building inspectors in the country.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Red.
My favourite subject. So for John, this is the way they work. We model a 200-year flood, and then the finished floor level's 300 millimetres above that. So as we said with Elizabeth, Noah's Ark, we should be fine. Is there any change or variation around some of the stuff, like when we've got houses being built garages being built 750 millimetres higher than the garage next, the existing house next door in West Melton? This is actually starting a lot of the stuff that's like really frustrating the community. And then it's like, well, if you don't build it that high, we're going to whack a hazard notice on it. So there's probably a bit here to talk to. Also, 200 years flooding, 300 millimetres above it, but when we talk lifespan of a building, we talk 50 years. Like, that's a concern from the public too. Moving forward now, every title that's issued, will the flood certificate be for the lifetime of what? There's a period where some of them have some of them. Okay, so we're saying 2 years here. What do we see changing in 2 years? So there's and then also too, when we're applying for it, I'm working through one at the moment. Provide a record of title for the property less than 6 months old. That's fine. Consent notices for the records of titles, and the team are good. They can go. These can be obtained from LINZ. A site plan. That includes existing ground relation levels into datum reference, vertical datum, 2016 format, and then the original site survey plan that was certified. Any of that stuff I've just mentioned there, is that stuff that's already held in the building? I just want to make sure we're not doubling up, or society's not doubling up, going, hang on, we're actually getting information from LINZ that may already be on file.
I'll try to answer the first couple of questions before I pass over to Murray Emma to deal with that last one. But a lot of those questions are outside the scope of this paper. But I do note that Murray and his team will be bringing a flood modelling paper to council in the next wee while, which will actually discuss what the methodology actually looks like, particularly the RCP factor, noting the letter from the Minister recently around what factors should and should not be used. But the actual discretion for council to opt out of this is non-existent. We have to apply flood hazard mitigation to buildings. And this is the mechanism that we have to use, which is 1 in 200 year event, which is set in the RPS.
Yeah, I can have a crack at it. So I think it's important that council always uses the most up-to-date information available to it at the time. And so if the building hasn't been built and 2 years passes and there's more recent information, then it makes sense to use that. So I think that's possibly why that 2 year limit has been imposed. So that if a site remains vacant for more than 2 years, they come to a building consent at that stage, we can use the most recent flood information.
And I realise that you guys are just doing your job, and I appreciate that, but it would be really good to start seeing some pushback further up on this here. Because Joe Bloggs think it's us being the pain in the arse with it, but it's actually further up that's actually instructing it, so I get that. But there's, like, when we've got houses just before my favourite roundabout, you've got, a house on the side of the road that's built probably 100, 150 millimetres below the centre of the road. That building consent was probably put through 2 or 3 years ago. That's all cool. It's just finished now. Then you drive round the corner, in the highest part of the road, you've got a house that's being built probably about 600 millimetres above it, and the cost to the consumers an extra 60, 70k. And you go, at what point do we actually, at what point is the break-even point? We actually just go, I'll just walk away from it. And there are a lot of people walking away from it. And also, Murray, it'll be really good to understand, and when you talk to the paper, like in a couple of months' time around flood levelling, there's a couple of levels that we work off Littleton, I'm led to believe. It'll be good for the crew to have an understanding of that as well. Thank you.
No, happy to cover those matters. Thanks.
Reece.
Just to help you out with that, flood modelling of 200 years, if you've got a house that goes for 50 years, that means that it will never get flooded. Right?
No.
And insurance companies drive the 200-year flood modelling so that the new houses, which are expensive, don't get flooded. And central government runs that. So there is the other side of the argument, depending on whether you're paying for it in the front end or the back, and if you're paying an extra 60 or 70 to have it higher, then I guess you're looking at that point of... So my question doesn't exist.
They're the best sort of questions, hey guys? Elizabeth.
So just to reconfirm a few things, obviously I'm getting from Big Red's story is that around the corner is a whole new subdivision, and it makes sense to put all the subdivision at the new heights. But I'm talking about infill houses for me particularly, and so they're already building a house where there's already other houses that are much more at the lower height, and then a new house comes in at an extraordinary height. And it's creating privacy issues, but also external flooding issues. So their property is going to be dry, but all the rain is now going to wash into the neighbouring properties. So we don't currently have an avenue in the district plan to give effect to the variation such as infill. Is that correct?
I can't speak too much to the district plan, but we abide by the rules that are coming down from central government. So if it says a 200-year event is what we need to assess these levels at, then that's what we do.
Sophie.
Yeah, I don't really have much of a question. I might find one as I go along, but I do find it strange that we're talking about buildings being, around for 50 years. Most of us are quite proud of older buildings. We like trying to save them, so I don't really like the idea of building houses and expecting them to be useless after 50 years. It seems like an entire waste of money and materials. So I get that might be a perspective for some people, but generally if you're building a house, I think you'd probably expect it to last longer than that. And in terms of the 1 in 50 years or 250 years, here's probably the best question. Can someone give me a better explanation of what that means? Because my understanding is that 1 in 50 years means that every year you've got a 1 in 50 chance of it happening. And if it's 1 in 200 years, you've got a 1 in 200 chance of it happening every single year, which is why some people are like, how come I've lived through 3 1 in 50 year events and I'm only 25?
Yeah, no, I can answer that. So it's all about probability. And so you are right about the insurance companies. The larger that return period, the less chance you are going to flood. So if it's a 10%, a 1 in 10 year, that's a 10% chance in any given year. If it's a 1 in 100, it's a 1%. If it's a 200-year event, then it's a 0.5% chance in any given year. But you could have that chance that could be realised for a couple of years in a row, and then not for a very long time.
Yeah, or in the case of cyclones Gabrielle and Hale,
yeah,
twice in the space of a month. So that's probably why flood floor assessments are valuable, because you never know when it's going to hit or how bad it'll be, and the insurance companies don't care that. They've got better stats than we have. That would actually be an interesting briefing one day if somebody from Insurance Council could come. They speak very well to this.
I'm going to change tack from flooding. The Trusted Partners Program, that's number 4.6. It follows on from a discussion that was had in Audit and Risk about them doing remote inspections and what checks and balances we have in place. For the Trusted Partners, do we have some sort of occasional audit and review process to ensure that people aren't getting complacent, they're still holding up those high standards we expect of them?
Yes, we audit them.
Brilliant, that's the right answer. Any other questions? Tracy?
How often?
I would have to come back on that detail.
That'd be good, thank you.
If there's no more questions, can I have someone move that we accept the report? Elizabeth, seconded Reese, all those in favour? It's carried, thanks guys. So now we'll go back to the capital report. Thanks, guys. Over to you.
Thank you, and apologies. You're obviously running well ahead of time this morning, which is great. So this is the finance performance report to the end of June, so it's effectively the end of year wrap-up, so to speak. So this capital spend for the year was 54 million, which excludes Selwyn Water. And that included also, there's another $5.7 million of identified savings throughout the year, which I think from memory is about 7%, yes, roughly of the budget. And overall, that's an 86% spend of core infrastructure work. The biggest issues that we had with spending was around the open spaces and property and community services and facilities, which is the area that we're putting a lot of focus on and attention to now to try to correct that going forward. If there's no problems, there's a few questions that came through, so rather than running through the report, I'm just wondering if it's worth trying to go straight to those questions and run through them. And my apologies, there's also one that came in overnight, so I haven't quite got 100% answer to that, but I'll try to do what I can with it. But just a few of them. There's the first one was, does the amount of work physically completed align with the amount of budget spent? Do we have stuff progress to show that reflects the amount of money spent, the outcomes? So in broad terms, yes. The problem we've got is we're in the process of introducing systems and processes to be able to show and highlight and be able to develop that, to be able to show that. But in broad terms, we have delivered probably slightly more than the 67% indicates, because we've had that $5.7 million of savings. So you could say we've delivered 67 plus, sorry, was it 67? Sorry, 54 plus the 5.7. We've effectively delivered that value of work, which was identified 12 months ago over the 12-month period. There is swings and roundabouts, so some projects are up and some are down, and some are also multi-year, and that's one of the challenges we're working through at the moment is that because all the finance and performance reporting is based on an annual cycle, when you've got multi-year projects, it doesn't align particularly well, so we're trying to get our system sorted out to how we deal with both, which is can be quite challenging. And you'll see in the dashboards that the one thing that's changed from last time, you actually see that there's actually 3 financial years nominated now. So that's the start of that process of how we try to track a project over its life cycle, plus doing it on an annual, yearly cycle as well. Looking forward to the paper on Shands Road roundabout and lessons learnt. Yes. So there's a few on that. Progress is such now that perhaps it would be good to include a few current progress photos so councillors who don't regularly visit Lincoln, like some of us, can see how things are looking rather than the artist's impression. don't have a concern with that. One thing we're just trying to focus on is to make sure we don't end up with a dashboard that ends up being 2 or 3 pages long. We want to end up with just being 1 page. So we'll try to. Peter and I have actually looked about some ways, little things we might be able to tweak just to squeeze a photo or 2 in to help with that. So no problem with that. So this is the regards to from Sophie with regards to the roundabout, Selwyn Road roundabout. So there's a delay in design. Are there any scope, quality, risk notes for this, please? So it was behind at the end of June. As at this point in time, we've recovered that time, so everything's back on track. I won't say that it's a challenging program under the circumstances, and we're putting together a paper at the moment on that project, which I think is for the 12th of September from memory, or mid-September, around that. So, and just as an aside, councils or officers are just in the process of applying for NZTA co-funding for it as well. So fingers crossed we might actually have some knowledge about that by the time that comes around, but we may not either. What's that one? Oh, that's that one. And sorry, and Denise, you had a question around Selwyn Water Limited. Yeah, undercut, right? And then there was also a question, our 2 biggest spends seem to be our 2 biggest areas of continuing issue, so what is going wrong? I think it's probably quite a valid question. There's lots of parameters that can come into that, and to be honest, I was just talking to Steve Guy about this when Tim said, they're waiting on you. So could I come back onto you, but I might talk with Tim and others, and I wonder if there's a bigger picture that needs to be looked at. And the other one was around the White Cliffs Bridge, worried about this project and the risks listed. Can someone please speak to it? And the risks obviously around global fuel crisis, contracts greater than estimates, and improved funding and market conditions. So yes, they are real risks. They probably are with just about everything we're doing at the moment, but they're certainly so. Way that we manage risk with these projects is that when we got the approval from yourselves to with increased funding and stuff, that was based on an expected cost estimate, so it's sort of the middle of the road. If it turns out we need more money than that, we would have to come back to yourselves to sort of work through that. And if it's less, then we'll carry on. So at the moment, the project is out to tender and it closes at the end of September. So at that point in time, once we evaluate the tenders, we're going to have much better feel and understanding of how much of those risks are reflected in the situation or not reflected. I have to admit, it's a challenging environment every time. I think we all think it's starting to settle down. It bounces back up again with Uncle Donald doing something else in the Middle East. So unfortunately, we just have to try to manage our way through it. That's and was that one other one? Oh, so this is around what's the road? Hamptons Road winding. So there's been lots of internal discussions around this, and people aren't aware. So Denise's question was multiple contractors causing damage. So how can we make sure there is accountability and they repair the damage that they cause? Speaking with road and contractors the last few weeks, they suggest there needs to be more regular on-site checks by people who know what they're looking at to make sure that work is being done to spec. It is a real challenge, without a doubt, and I'm wondering if that's also something that we could perhaps look at on a bigger picture. I'll admit, Keith and I have actually been chatting about that this morning with some, I don't know, left field ideas, I suppose. They might not be runners, but it is certainly a challenge, and particularly there's lots of things involved, like New Zealand builds roads cheaply, and there's a bigger picture of it all, and new roads aren't waterproof, no matter how hard we try it. If we try to waterproof it, then we shorten the life in the long term. So there's a whole lot of parameters that come in that make life really challenging. I think that's one of the challenges, and Hamptons Road has been particularly challenging Yes, and in 12 months ago, I think the team thought that the developers were a couple of years away when it turned out they were a couple of months away. So it's all those things that are a nightmare to work through. But is there any further questions or clarifications around any of that stuff?
Tracy has a question.
Hey, David.
Yeah, no, Tracy.
Keith, I know that this is a financial reporting paper, but can one of you explain to me how I can feel assured that the multiple learnings that we take from each project moves into the next project or a similar project? And yeah, it's all of them, but I was speaking to some people in Lincoln Town Centre in the last couple of days, and one of the things they keep putting at the end of stuff in a very brave face is, well, as long as somebody else can benefit from the learnings. And so what is it that we do as an organisation to ensure that we not just go, well, we've learnt this from that, and then that's over there, and then we move to the next thing?
Great question, thank you. So one of the processes, which is a standard process when you're delivering a significant project, is a post-implementation report, which, if you like, is your post-mortem. It's not only about what things didn't go to plan, it's also about what went really well. And so we are looking in this financial year for all our projects to have a post-implementation report in place. Obviously, for the bigger projects, that's going to be a bigger document. I know last Friday out in Hororata with John and Sam, very obvious there that there'll be some significant lessons that can be learned, and that always helps inform a better plan for the future. You also gave me a question of the Rolleston Town Centre. How do we make sure that business disruption is managed? Well, we've got some very good lessons learned as to how things went in Lincoln Town Centre, which will be included in stages 2 and 3. But it's really important for us to have that documentation, because whether we use internal project teams or external consultants to help us deliver those projects, that information can be shared, and that means that we can avoid things that go wrong again, but also take advantage as things go well. So we will be developing all of those, and that will be a standard piece. So as well as a project initiation document that tells us why we're doing something, there'll be a post-implementation review that tells you, well, what went well, what could have gone better.
Reece.
Thank you. Just more out of interest on the capital works, I'll go back to that first question, is you mentioned there that in 4.1 that 84 million was in relation to Selborne Water for the capital works, and that's been divested there. Can you explain how that actually works? Have we given them $84 million to go and build their things, and how does that work?
Also, Peter, do you want to?
So as part of the annual plan, we had budgeted to do that amount of work in water. So when they were forming their water plans, we said, okay, here's your baseline of what we've said, and they then took that as the baseline and worked forward. We didn't give them $84 million. What we did is give them the balance of our DCs. We gave them the costs that could be capitalized to produce those assets. So it's not that we provided the funding, we provided any targeted rates that we had collected that would be in relation to those, any DCs collected, all of that is what they received. So they were basically sitting in the same position that we were, with the ability to fund those programs.
Yeah, a budget. It's cool. And I see you've written here that the budget has increased by 86 million. From the previous budget, and then you said due to, and then you got A, B, C, D, which is only about $2.6 million worth of numbers there. I'm just not expecting an answer of how you can explain the other $84 million.
Sorry, specifically its current budget has been increased to 86.8.
Oh, well then that would be me that's misread there then. Oh, well, that's good, because I was thinking that I had missed something major. I'm glad I haven't.
Samuel.
Thank you. I've asked in the past. I can't remember if it was you, fine gentlemen, or not. But regarding the HQ extension proposal, I'd really like to see what a yearly cost of lease agreements for buildings that aren't of our ownership or loss of revenue from our staff being off-site from here is per year of buildings that we do own. So then we can actually sort of see what the cost recovery of that outlay to bring them back home, as it were, would be. Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 50 years? Yeah, if it makes sense, then I think it would add to that argument. So if you guys could have a look into that, that would be awesome.
I think, Sam, just on that one, so we're sort of overlapping a wee bit into Rob Allen's report later, which is the lease report, which will cover that detail there.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Denise.
Hi. It's not really a finance thing, but about the lessons learned in Rolleston Town Centre. As with Lincoln, I think a lot of it could have been avoided or lessened if we had had better consultation and communication with the community before it started, because it really didn't go well. But anyway, and just so you know, I'm just going to tell you, 12,000 people watched the video of the Lincoln Town Centre, so they're kind of interested. And 35,000 people looked at the photo of the trees going in. So people are interested in what's going on, and you are being watched.
I'm going to jump in now because my question's about Lincoln as well. Under the risks, you've got dependency on Orion's works. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
What's an appropriate way to say it? Orion operate in a manner that we have very limited control over. And so they've also got quite a significant workload outside of things. So I've probably seen in the papers how they're looking to embark on a sort of quite a significant upgrade across their network. So being able to have them commit and lock in dates and times and budgets and resources and things gets harder. It's getting harder and harder. So, and it's obviously any project that has lighting or anything like that involved is a similar thing. We do have meetings with them on, I think it's a 3 or 4 monthly basis, to try to have a liaison group and work with things to try to manage it as much as possible. But they are flagging to us that what has happened in the past might not be quite as strong a delivery, I suppose, focus in the future because of other commitments that they're taking on. So it's just going to be an ongoing challenge, unfortunately.
So what does that mean for delivery of the project? Does it mean you'll delay starting until you've got commitment from them, or does it mean that we're going to have months with open trenches waiting for wires to be put in, or what are we looking at?
I don't think we want to have months of open trenches because that's a health and safety matter for the start, and it doesn't look very good, and it also ultimately costs money anyway. So I don't think that's really an option unless we have to. I think the big one is having early consultation with them and getting things lined up and in the past. So the latest one that's going to have a biggest impact, for example, is Brougham Street, which NZTA is upgrading. So there's I think from memory they mentioned that that's effectively one of their largest areas of congestion of cables in Christchurch or in Canterbury. So that's going to have a potential to have a significant impact. They also, their resources for doing physical work, they have a list of people which is quite limited. So we're trying to encourage them to see if they can broaden that to bring other parties in as well with things. So it's I think, keeping in touch with them and consulting and getting it early is going to be the big part of it, but it will certainly be more challenging than it has been in the past.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it hopefully will be managed, but it could become a bit of an issue. So
it could
be a good thing to keep us updated, maybe through Steve's report every now and again, just giving us reassurance things are
red flags
moving along. Great. Elizabeth.
Post-implementation project review. is this something that we do internally, or will we be going out to the community and to the affected businesses for their take on how we have undertaken this process?
Ordinarily, that would be an internal review of whether the project met the necessary goals. But where you've got something such as Lincoln Town Centre, in order to inform that properly, we would be talking with the businesses to understand their experience as well as our own experience. So for the more straightforward projects, that would be a looking at, did we hit the measurable benefits? Yes, no. But where there's something where there's lessons to be learnt with our interface with the community, then we would seek feedback from the community. We'll also seek feedback from the contractors. Were our designs and specifications to standard? Were they understandable? We look at whether there was any scope creep throughout the whole project. We'd look at external factors such as fuel price changes. All those sort of things would go in there. So it really is a comprehensive look at what happened. But ordinarily, that's an internal review. And the reason for it's an internal review is it helps upskill our own people to understand why things went the way they went.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move that the report be accepted? Denise, seconded. Sarah, all those in favour? Oh, hold on.
It's all right,
Before we
Aaron,
do
if you wanna
that,
move
Tim
on.
just has a comment.
Just a couple of comments, given it's the end of the financial year report. 68% of our delivered budget isn't where we want to be. There's a lot of focus this year going into to our sequencing of work, our forecasting, our planning when we do projects, making sure that we do the project when we say we're going to do it. But I did want to draw your attention to how we perform in regard to our core service delivery. So you would note in the report that we deliver 92% of our transportation programs. So the team's done an outstanding job there. So I just want to recognise them. So look, long story short, 68%, not where we want to be. Lots of stuff going on to improve that. So I expect to see an improvement on that this financial year.
Thanks, Tim. So we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Now on to the customer satisfaction report.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. Nicola and Chantel are here from the Community Services and Facilities team. Nicola will speak to you about the what the findings are in regards to the across council performance and the expectations in terms of the improvements and the steps going forward. And Chantel is here to also support with questions, but also supported the survey in terms of identifying some of the channels that were available in the systems limitations in terms of the survey. It's only the second time that we've ever had an across council survey. And I'm mindful that the portfolio committee has had some earlier visibility over the survey and the resultant action plan, and they may well want to comment as well in this regard.
Tēnā koutou. Sorry. Good morning, and thank you, Denise, for that introduction. So just do want to let you know that the report was shared with the customer and community portfolio, and so there'll be an opportunity for councillors Very and Carrick to comment at the end of what I'll present this morning. Just when you came in, I had placed a clearer copy of the two tables from the report on the table for you. Apologies that they weren't particularly able to be read. Something happened in the PDF process there. The survey results show strong levels of customer satisfaction with frontline services in the first point of contact, but you can see that there's inconsistent service and lower satisfaction once inquiries move beyond that first point of contact. ELT have reviewed the findings that are in the report from Ask Your Team, and the Chief Executive has communicated improvement of customer service as a priority area. To this end, an cross-council project group has been established for a time-limited period in order to focus on priority areas, in particular communications, so that's keeping customers informed about their inquiry and providing better information so customers can help themselves to the information rather than needing to make an inquiry. Ownership and handovers, so ensuring that inquiries are not bouncing around between teams, particularly where multiple teams are required to be involved in a response, so making sure there's one point of ownership and that any handover amongst teams is much better done, and customer service standards that are consistent across council. So work's already started on better recording of customer inquiries, which will allow tracking of responses. And we've also implementing 2 new internal KPIs to help measure progress. One of those is aimed around improving the timeliness of responses to inquiries, and the other is around customers who've asked to hear back about inquiries and measuring how many of those, the percentage of customers that we're achieving that for. The aim of those 2 new internal KPIs is to drive improvement across council and to ensure that every staff member is engaged in that process. You can read in section 5.2 of the report some of the other project areas that we're going to be working on initially, which I think will lift performance in this area. There are 2 questions that just came through on Diligent that I'll answer now. One was regarding the number and range of responses that the elected members survey drew. So 7 elected members completed the survey with the 0 to 10 scale question about their perception of customer satisfaction. The ratings that were given in those responses were between 3 and 9, so the range was 6, and there was an average rating of 6.7. And there was also a question which I'll ask Chantal to speak to, and it was regarding the location of services and how they're recorded. So that was in the table on page 117 of Diligent, but it's also one of the tables on the piece of paper that's on your desk there. So I'll just ask Chantal to speak to that.
Yep, awesome. So the where they are located to, so if it's a request for service in regards to a pothole or something that is needed to be fixed or the attention's done, it is located to the address of where the pothole is sitting. So the location field within the service request is where the situation is. If it is about a person's own person, so their rates, their water bill, or anything to do with animal control, it is logged to their property, so it will fall under their own address.
Okay, so at this point it would be, I'd like to invite councillors Very and Carrick if they've got any comments they'd like to make on the findings or the planned actions before opening it up for any further questions.
Denise.
Thanks, Nicola. It's been really good working with you in the portfolio. I think it's really helping us to understand what goes on and, what needs to be done for the future. I think we probably knew what the results were, but it's really great to have the stats now to support that, and now have the KPIs to move it forward, rather than just people saying it and thinking it. It's like actually put it into really clear words, and I love how clear that you put everything across to us. And elected members, seeing elected members asked, and staff as well, because we all have different perspectives, and hopefully next time we'll get all the elected members to fill it in. I will chase them up. But thank you.
Elizabeth.
Around the number of complaints. Sorry, did you?
You want to go, John?
John, sorry. I'll come off and go back.
Yep, sorry. No, I'd just like to say that it's been a constructive experience, and I think that now that we've got the baseline, that, as I said at the portfolio meetings, that the next challenge that I'm sure we're all up to is trying to get the measures more, rather than just, reporting facts, identifying and then showing us that we can actually continue to improve. But it's a good base to start from. Thank you.
Right. Around the number of complaints received about the performance of the land drainage system, it says less than 6. Now, I'm just wondering how that's taken, how that information is gathered, because the bulk of the complaints are probably received by councillors directly or by the land drainage committees. So I'm wondering if we can reevaluate how we ascertain that, so we have actually a more real-time diagnosis of the issues.
We could certainly look at that. What happens during the survey period is that it's the complaints that are coming in or being addressed during that survey period generate an automatic invitation to participate in a survey. So if the councillors are drawing attention to a complaint that then gets recorded in the system, then that should result in a generation of an invitation. So perhaps we could look at how councillors are receiving complaints and where those are recorded to make that happen.
Lydia.
This is great. It's great to get clarity on this. So thank you for the work that's been done. I'm looking at the next steps in the time-limited delivery group. And for me, I'm just looking at where's the reporting on the actions going to. Is that going to sit with the portfolio group, or is it coming to here?
So the expectation is that it will come here. So ELT will receive a regular report, and the Finance and Performance Committee will also receive reports.
Good. Thank you.
Red.
Elizabeth, your answer to Elizabeth sort of did ask my question. Do we think everyone or the right people are targeted? Like with the customer surveys now, it's become a sort of a new thing over the last 10 years. You go and buy a vehicle and you get a survey, then you get insurance, you get a survey. I've always said the people we should be targeting in business are the people that don't actually transact with you, because you've already captured the people that are transacting with us. Probably more just a thought there going, actually, if there's someone disgruntled who doesn't even get to the chance to engage with a staff member around something, are we giving them the opportunity as well? That's all.
So I'll just make a small comment on that. There's a difference between a customer satisfaction survey and a resident survey, and I think the idea of speaking to people that we're not interacting with in that customer situation is probably more sitting in that resident survey space. So it's where the council was interested and would find benefit in a resident survey and what that would do that was different to a customer survey. So I think it's an interesting question to think further about.
Super, thank you.
Samuel.
Thank you. Looking at your handout, thank you for printing it. Yeah. Wondering if I needed to go to Specsavers. It sort of shows here that Prebleton are a little less impressed than possibly other areas. Do we have any expansion on that as to why they might be a little less? Was it during the billboard? Was it? Yeah. Was it once? I'm not even going to say that one. And another point, what in your opinion would increase the metrics of when our calls are being deferred? Like customer service, front of desk, you guys are doing amazing. I mean, it's showing in the response from the survey. How do we lift the metrics and lift the responses deeper into the organisation once those customers have been referred to other departments, in your opinion?
So in my opinion, I think it's a culture shift. So one that we'll work on with the project group. So it's making sure that customer service is embedded across the whole organisation and not just the job of the customer services team. And it's also getting insight of what the customer journey looks like. And so that's what we are doing currently. So to give you an understanding, in the month of June, we raised 1,400 service requests. So they went through to teams that needed to address something. From the 1st of July, when we changed the process and we log now every interactions with customers, we've logged 6,044 service requests.
Wow.
So that gives us an insight of what the customer journey looks like, but also gives us the ability to be able to see where the issues are laying and where we can be transparent enough to look over those situations and be able to address them further. It will also log the issues of where customers are having to re-communicate with us because they're not getting situations addressed. And so I think that's where one of the biggest issues sits, is that they're not hearing back. So if we can address that in what we're doing here, we'll get better visibility of how we fix that issue going forward.
Do you believe a CRM would help with that?
A CRM will definitely give us the biggest visibility that we need across the organisation to be able to work to that 100%.
Cool.
And so doing the job that we're doing now to be able to see the customer journey gives us the insight of how important that CRM would be.
So it is a regular occurrence that you'll have a ratepayer ring up with a concern, you transfer their call, and then 10 minutes later you get a phone call back from the same person going, what happened there?
I don't know if it'd be 10 minutes, but definitely could be the next day or that afternoon. We will get better visibility from what we're doing in the process change because we've never been able to track certain areas and where those issues lie. So I think if we have a look at it in a month or 2 months, so if we see the likes of, so rates we were never able to visibly see what was happening with an interaction there because it wasn't loaded into the same system. Since we started this, 1,071 interactions have happened in that area. So it would be good to be able to see where that situation lies. So where areas that we didn't have visibility, planning is another one, to see how that works, because those are the ones we had to put callbacks through or situations like that. So we'll be able to see that line of being the interaction being closed off.
Cool. And which of the 7 elected members rated interactions the worst?
Sorry, Sam, I didn't hear the last part of that.
Perhaps we should answer that over a cup of tea in private.
Which of the elected members surveyed us the worst?
Yeah.
What can we do to change their perspective?
Yes.
Me? No, I didn't answer it. I was one of the slack out of the 11.
It's probably better to have that discussion offline, I think.
Oh, no fun. Anyway,
No,
thank you.
It's not to shut it down, but we'll respect that person's privacy.
No privacy in politics.
Sophie.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for all of this. I'm not sure whether this is in scope, but I was just wondering how because there was a project around closing off SnapSend Solve because there were quite a lot of unresolved ones, which had potentially been resolved. It's just the getting that information back to somebody, on your phone.
Yep, so that's definitely been a point in the Closing the Loop project as well. And our satisfaction in SnapSend Solve is definitely increasing. So if I look at it in the month of May, we had a section of 67. It increased in June to 76 and will continue going on. What we have is got the customer services team, now that we have that insight of what's happening with every interaction that goes out, going back and having a look, and if they haven't been told to the customer, we will go back and tell them and close that interaction off so that happens.
Nice, awesome. And the other question I had was around, because we now have our elected member query page, but quite often when we put a question in there, and it's really interesting to see the questions that everybody asks and the interactions back, so I love having the oversight of that. But at the same time, I don't know whether that is able to get captured into some of this stuff, because the trouble is, by the time those queries have got to come to us and then we put it on there, quite often that's because somebody has already received the service and some answers from somebody else, and they're not really happy with the answer. So naturally, we're seeing like the grumpiest end. And sometimes there's good reasons for that, and sometimes it's because the council literally has no agency in this particular query. We just have to try and explain that and accept it. And sometimes we can make a difference. But either way, the question is that being captured in here anywhere, or are we doing any metrics on that?
The first, I'll respond first and then I'll hand across to Chantal. I think some of what you touch on is about the knowledge base, and are we making the most current information and the most topical information available online in a way that's accessible. So we have come to the view that actually a lot of residents and customers don't necessarily want to talk to anybody, they just want the information. And so the easier we can get in the more topical and simple to understand information that we can get online, the better. So that's part of the driver. And Chantal, you might talk about the rest of the query.
Yeah. So absolutely, it's like Denise said, it's about having that knowledge base article there, but it's also what we're doing with works with the comms team, is having a look at what's driving the interactions on the website as well, and are we visibly seeing that same interaction with us here? So are they going to the website, not seeing what they're looking for, and then coming to us, or are they going to the website and we're seeing a decrease in that interaction, having to come through customer services, and trying to address it so that if we see, upheaval in transportation, roadworks is probably a huge one in the Lincoln Town Centre. A lot of that interaction was coming to us, and then when we fed that back to comms, ensuring that they update that information, have as much as they can, or contact key points there, we were seeing less of that coming through and more of the hits on the website. So we are looking at all of that to ensure that where the messaging or the information needs to be is there, and it's clear, and I guess it's in plain English language as well, so customers understand it and not what we see, because I think that's one of the biggest things we hear, is it could be there, but they have no understanding of what it means.
Fair enough. And that probably drove then, because there's the Roadworks channel on Facebook as well, which is great because it just delivers it straight to you.
Yeah, so making sure we have it at like different points across as well. So available to people that walk into the libraries, because that's really good for them to be able to pick it up and read it, or talk to somebody about it on the website, because that's easy accessible, and then Facebook, because a lot of people hit there as well.
Cool. Thank you.
I think, Sophie, I was just going to add to what the team have said, is this is one of the areas where we're looking to use AI. So we can see where there's that general thematic coming through on questions. So the team, whatever team that may be, don't have to answer that question for a second time. So we've got then that library, which is then attached to the knowledge base that spans across the councillor queries, so we can see where those themes are coming in.
Thank you very much. I think my fellow councillors will agree that we want to pass on our thanks to the frontline staff, who are obviously being very well regarded and often in quite difficult circumstances, dealing with people who have got complaints coming to them. So it's great to hear that at that level people are feeling well served. So thank you very much. Now to the Selwyn Water report. Oh no, I've got to move can we move that the report is Sophie as a seconder? Sarah, all those in favour? That's carried. And now we will move to the Selwyn Water report. So welcome, over to you guys.
Thank you. We'll just pop the slide up and then we can start. While Nisha's doing that, so the initial part of this session is around the quarterly report. So we're just going to share some of those highlights with you. But a lot of what we've been doing over this last, since 1 July, is embedding our billing process with our customers, and so just wanted to give you just an overview of how that's gone for us. So this first month we've run through a large number of our bills and run out about 5,000 bills overall. From that, we've received quite a number of customer queries that have come through. A lot of the queries that have come through as part of that are new customers, so customers that haven't necessarily received a bill before, so they're just querying their bill, and customers not aware of what they were paying before as well. And so there's been a bit of work that we've needed to do just to show the customer that some of the charges that they might have seen on their rates bill has now moved across to their water bill. And then the other part of the queries is around just understanding what that bill is. So we've had a number of queries from customers, particularly around restricted water units and wanting to understand what that allocation is and whether or not they can make a reduction based on that. The other thing that we've been concentrating on as we've gone through this process is just making improvements to some of the initial processes that we set up. Things like enabling the self-reads against end of tenancy, and we've made some updates to our forms as we've gone along as well, where we've felt that we could get some better information from that front end from the customer, which would make a smoother process and a quicker process going back to the customer. So we've updated that on quite a regular basis. We've also looked at things like how we've been communicating to our customers. So we've got a website which is relatively extensive, but as more queries are coming through to our customer services team, if we feel that our website could be clearer, those updates are happening real time and on a regular basis. So some of those things we're still working through at the moment. We'd expect that by the time we get to the end of this quarter, we'll have quite a considerable amount of information that we'll be able to share with our customers going forward, which helps them better understand what we're doing, when we're doing it, and what impact it has on them, and improvements that we can make to make the process much more smoother. So that's our main focus around a customer area. Did you want to add anything on the communication side, Nisha?
Just that we're working really closely with our customer services team to pick up those key queries coming through and sort of wrapping around extra communications and supporting them. Also, obviously, just touching on what you've just seen with Chantel and the customer services team, they are receiving queries as well, so we're going to be working with them about how we can better support them with customer queries coming on into SDC as well. And also we're just putting some extra templating to help support billing. There are some people still paying SDC instead of us, so we're wrapping around some extra comms to support that as well.
So that was an update around the billing, and of course if you notice the other sort of 5 points, they have continued while we've been doing that piece of work as well. So we're still continuing to deliver safe and reliable water services. Our water services strategy is up now, and we've started the work to think about what does our next water services strategy look like in alignment with the long-term plan the council is doing. The transition program has remained on track. And we've completed nearly everything that we could do by the 31st of July. There's some residual issues we need to work through with council that will take a longer period of time to resolve. Our capital program governance, and we've improved our asset and compliance systems around our capital delivery. And hopefully you've seen the bubbles that we've put up on our website, which shows what the capital program looks like. And of course, we continue our engagement on a regular basis. And so, did you want to add anything?
Good morning, everyone. Just a minor point on the queries and the customer engagement, which has been central to what we've been doing over the last month or so. When the team gets a query, customer services team here, if they can't answer that question, it gets escalated to a senior member of the team, primarily the group that you have here, and then we follow that up with a phone call or a meeting. And I think that kind of approach is working quite well. We got 3 main groups: those who haven't seen a bill before, those who probably haven't seen the cost of the water, others where maybe the other bills, particularly in the restricted water supply, might be different than what they were paying before. So it does require a good explanation so we can increase their understanding in the community. I was in Dartfield last night talking to a group of customers that have some queries. So that approach, I know it might feel a little bit old-fashioned and but it's working quite well, and we'll continue to do that. And I just wanted to acknowledge the team here. They've been spending a lot of time on the phone responding to some tricky questions, but we'll continue to do it until we get it right.
Any questions? Elizabeth?
Hi, this is a good overview, but I'm just wondering if we're able to see a little bit more of the detailed work plan that you're doing in our community, so that when the communities come to us, or we have a bit of an understanding of what's happening directly, that would be really useful for us. So obviously you talked about being in Darfield, so that's a prime example of then once you've had that conversation, then following on with the councillors to what that looks like that you're actively doing. Hold on a second. So there was a report that came back to us this morning, and it talked about the compliance with environmental standards, but it said that there's been a change through the legislation, so that some compliance levels have dropped, which are creating some cost savings. So I wonder if if you have that information at hand and able to talk to that a little bit.
We have a number of kind of the reports that cover our compliance requirements. I'm not sure that they have dropped. We will submit those to you perhaps within our next report. We can do a report out of cycle if they're not included here, but perhaps we just need to explore a little bit more what specific compliance reporting you're referring to, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'll go back and have a look through that. On 4.18, you've got the incorporation of resilience and climate considerations into planning. Are you able to speak to what that looks like at the moment?
Yeah, so what we've been doing with our capital delivery program is just, we had projects. What we are trying to do now is just to group them into a program so that they support each other and bring some specific work to enhance our resilience, where it might be energy or environmental protection, that kind of stuff. We do have, by grouping these programs into a slightly more kind of cohesive program of work, it will be able to do some of those improvements. Energy is one that is top of mind. We know that we have been relying heavily on kind of diesel as a backup. So we've been thinking about how we can diversify a little bit of that and reduce also the cost of disruptions that might occur through conflict in the Middle East and other. We have conducted a fairly extensive asset condition assessment. Right? That means engineers going to sites and looking at not just how the asset is performing, but the environment in which the assets are placed. So then we can identify, particularly for those critical assets, what is the work that needs to be done to improve resilience and ensure that we want to bring all of that as part of our next water strategy, because we want to have a conversation with you and with the community about the investment profile. Yeah, there's some things that we could do, but obviously we'll have cost up front, or is it a risk that we prepare to take and then we're going to spread that a little bit later? But that's what we've been doing now, is making sure that that sits at the center of our planning.
Okay. And 5.3, if you've got engagement with Taumutu Runanga on a partnership plan, is that something the councils has a wider knowledge of, or could have a wider knowledge of?
We had a meeting with the Mutu de Marae, and we got to hear their aspirations and their plans and what they're doing. There is a follow-up that needs to be conducted now. Then that, I guess, will be informing the different planning documents that we'll be producing. The other thing that we need to do is, of course, align what we do with your plans. It's part of our expectation of statement of expectation that we give effect to your plan. So I think the two things will be developed in parallel, Elizabeth, rather than separately.
Yep. And is this all available, going to become available on the website for the public to have the overview of as well?
Everything we do, it's, you remember from the very early on, we said, you wanted us to be transparent and open. So our capital delivery program, as Heather mentioned, you can go to the website and see what we do and how much we spend and where things are at. All of our plans will be there. Nisha has been working on a place on our website, so all the kind of media queries and other customer queries will end up there, so that people can see what questions we've been asked and what responses we have provided. So yeah, that's a philosophy that we are trying to adopt in the way we operate.
Thank you very much.
Lydia. No, Greg, sorry. Looking at your
Oh,
light.
thanks, team, and thanks for the update. Thanks, Nisha. Also, you've been for the work that you've done in the background for the business community around a few things too. Really appreciated that. I know I've said it before. Just with your inquiry rate with people inquiring about how they build and all that sort of scenario, this is just a suggestion, not a question. There's a joker who did a video that's on the Selwyn District Council Facebook page. Well, you should whack that on your Facebook page.
Thank you. We'll take that on board.
Denise.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all the work that I know that you've had to do. And I know that you're working on like catching up with what has happened. Have you put any thoughts or can you talk to the effects that the fast track might have? Because I feel like that's going to be a big part of your business.
Okay, I'll take that one. We have said the particular wastewater capacity, it's at limit or close to it, and we're talking about resilience before. Obviously, large weather events, puts even more pressure. To date, we have managed to cope okay, but obviously we're not talking about a handful of fast track projects. We're talking about a fairly significant number, much more than what I've seen in other regions. So we are actively working on how we enable growth. We think growth is important for the region. It's important for create jobs and GDP and all of that. But obviously, we want to do it in a way that is not going to further impact on residents, and we're very mindful about the affordability test. So we are working on a couple of innovative ideas, but there's no quick fixes. So we have been providing advice when we get queries or when we ask about these fast track processes that's kind of realistic and pragmatic, whilst we work on a long-term plan. I know that government have said that that they will support the fast track where appropriate, as long as it doesn't have where growth pay for growth and there is no impact on the affordability for residents. So it's just balancing those things. But definitely we're talking to developers, we're talking to other key players of how we manage this. It's probably the number one strategic priority for us at the moment, alongside obviously, as Heather and Nisha was saying, it's kind of settling the business as usual so that we can start diverting our attention to those more longer term plans. But let me assure you all that it is something that we are working on.
Lovely. Thanks, Alex.
We've got 3 minutes to go, so quick. Lydia.
Don't panic. Look, I think the thing around the water charging and the amount of probably questions that you're getting in, the big change for people at the moment, and even I notice it being on a restricted water supply is, now I get a different looking bill on a daily charge. So we're not used to volumetric, daily rate charging. So, there is a huge change. So thank you for answering all the questions from people that does flow in. My question is have you adopted our policy of minimum 2 units or 2 restricted units per connection? We talk about the people that are wanting to reduce down. Have you just a lift and shift from us around that 2 unit minimum?
We don't have a minimum requirement for the customers, but we are encouraging our customers to really think about their water usage, especially with the seasonal changes, and recommending the 2 water unit requirement. There is a charge for customers to reduce or increase their allocation. And so as we go through that process and we're explaining that, some customers are still choosing to reduce. And that, of course, we'll need to think about what the on-flow effect of that is going to be around our allocation across the district and what happens with those. So we're working through that at the moment and updating our communications around that as we go as well. So we've got really consistent messaging going out.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because there's going to be a cost because you've got to send someone out to change the restrictor, right? So
there's some components there, obviously. But the important thing, Lydia, if I may, is that this only just happened, right? So we are in August, people seeing the first bills. So there's a piece there around, we want to make sure that when anyone makes a decision, there's an informed decision. We don't want people to rush, because suddenly you realize, don't need all of this, and then you make a change, and then that may affect your plans for your retirement plans. Maybe you wanted to subdivide your property and put some houses, and then you end up needing the units later. So we are taking quite a cautious approach, and one that is focused on information. So then once people know what, the implications of doing one thing or the other, it is very topical, right? And we are looking at some different ways of doing things to make sure that we meet the expectations of the customer.
Well, as someone on 2 units, I can say it can adequately fulfil our needs, and also does some stock order if you store it well. The other thing is I recognise that you are starting to settle into, I'm hesitant to say BAU. Hence the hesitation into, what is BAU, because I recognise this has been a pretty big journey to stand this up. And I guess, when we have reporting from our CCOs, I will automatically go back to our statement of expectation and analyse the reporting against that. And so I think it's just future focused of next time I'll grace period, because I know that, you're not in BAU realistically. But the next lot of reporting I will assess against statement of expectation. So I'm just making sure that we're picking that up and getting the right information here, because I think that'll give us the real level of clarity that we would like in establishing Selwyn Water.
If I may, thank you for that. This report is not intended to be our report against the statement of expectation. There is a heading there, statement of expectation. We raised a couple of points there. This is just our quarterly report, which kind of is slightly broader than that. We got a meeting, I think it's on the 25th of August. There's a mayor and shareholder and chair meeting. Is the quarterly update. You will get a copy of the against the statement of expectation at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. And if councillors are asking questions, it will come to you for your level of clarity as well. I think, and I note that all your capital program is on your website, so I've actually just sent the link of that to councillors so that they can have a look and see all the projects that you're undertaking. So thank you for that.
Just to make it quick.
Just before you jump in, John, I'm just noting that we've ticked over 2 hours, and I'm trusting that the people will be happy to just push on for another few minutes. Yep. Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you. How confident is Selwyn Water Limited that everybody getting water is paying for it?
Our level of confidence increases by the day, John. So we are, I mean, part of that engagement, some people, they have received a bill for the first time. Others, I think, that used to receive a bill where they were paying for 1 unit of water, but they were actually receiving 3.5 units of water. So again, there's a bit of explaining there why now the bill is, 3.5 times what it used to be. I just met a customer outside who had some queries because he's paying less than what, he thought he will be paying. So it's a mixed bag, and that's why I think the focus for us, because it is on one of the things that you ask us to do is just to build that confidence, and I think that confidence will come with the clarity around cost, revenue, how that's allocated, and the data clarity that we need. So it's growing, John, but we still got a long way to go before I can say, yes, we are 100% sure that everyone gets what they need, what they should be getting.
Lucky last, Samuel.
Thank you. I'll be quick. Don't want to get told off by the chair. I was just interested in what the notifiable event was involving a contractor, or is that more of an offline conversation? Yeah.
Down at Pines.
Okay.
And it was notifiable. The investigation was carried on. There was no follow-up.
Okay, cool. And I'd just like to reiterate my thanks. You guys inherited something that the community effectively didn't want, pushed back against quite firmly, but you've taken it in your stride. You're finding efficiencies. You're not going to win everybody over. So, but I think you're making the best of a, dare I say, a poo sandwich. So, yeah, thank you. And for the people that I've spoken to that have dealt with you directly and your team, yeah, speak very highly. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have someone move that we accept the report? Denise, seconded Reese. All those in favour? Aye. It's carried. Thank you very much. Now we are going to move into a public excluded session. Can I have someone move that we do that, please? Denise, seconded by Reese.